The prince and the bride cut their palms and held each other's hands tightly. When their blood intermingled, the bride inherited the royal bloodline. After the wedding ceremony concluded, the prince carried the bride to the middle of a stone bridge. Suddenly, he threw her into an abyss. The girl was sacrificed to the dragon. After an unknown amount of time, the girl slowly regained consciousness. She shouted for help toward the hole above, but instead of receiving a response, she awakened the sleeping dragon. Realizing her marriage to the prince was merely a transaction between the royal family and the dragon, she angrily tore off her necklace and threw it away. She then attempted to climb the rock walls only to slip and fall back to the ground. On the ground, she noticed scattered ornaments indicating that many others had been sacrificed here before. She saw a flickering light nearby and curiously approached it, discovering a small bird engulfed in flames. She quickly used dirt to extinguish the fire, but it was too late to save the bird. As she prepared to bury the bird, strange noises arose from ahead. Thousands of burning birds flew toward her, chaotically crashing into everything like headless flies. Terrified, the girl crouched on the ground, covering her head. When silence returned, she saw the scorched remains of the birds scattered around her. She had no idea what had just transpired. Suddenly, a low growl came from behind her. Too scared to breathe, she turned to find a giant claw sliding across the rock face. Panicked, she ran, but the dragon breathed fire toward her. At the last second, she dove into a cave, barely escaping, though her leg was burned. The searing pain made her cry out. Outside, the dragon's voice echoed, unexpectedly speaking.
Did I hurt you?
The girl realized the dragon couldn't enter the cave. She retrieved a dagger from her pocket, tore off a strip of fabric to bandage her wound, and lit a portable lamp using the ground's lingering flames. The faint light guided her as she searched for an exit. The cave narrowed, forcing her to crawl. The slippery walls caused her to fall, extinguishing her lamp. After an unknown amount of time, she stood and noticed a glow ahead. She followed it, unaware of the treacherous path beneath her. Startled, she pulled back and threw the ring the prince had given her into the abyss. Gathering her courage, she sprinted and leapt to the opposite side. At a critical moment, she used her dagger to anchor herself in a crevice, climbing upward with sheer determination. At the top, she found glowing insects on the walls. She took one into her hand, its faint light sparking an idea. She tore off her sleeve, placed the glowing insect inside, and created a simple lantern. She discovered a water source but found the water undrinkable due to contamination. She relied on drops from melting ice stalactites to quench her thirst. Suddenly, the ice began to melt rapidly and she narrowly escaped into a narrow cave to avoid disaster. After the dragon left, she noticed names carved into the rock walls left by others who had sought refuge like her. Upon waking, she found glowing insects covering her burned leg. Disgusted, she brushed them off, only to realize her burn had healed. Testing her theory, she placed insects on her wounded arm and watched as it healed rapidly. Encouraged, she explored further and discovered a map carved into the wall. It seemed someone had escaped before. She carved her own name into the wall and followed the map. Eventually, she reached an upward passage covered in crystalline lettering. Unsure how to climb, she noticed a crown nearby, evidence of a previous climber. She tore her clothes into strips, wrapping them around her hands and feet, and used the crown to hook onto the crystals, climbing upward bit by bit. As she climbed halfway up, her foot slipped. Fortunately, the crown caught on the crystal, preventing her fall, but the crystal couldn't bear the weight and began to crack. Through relentless effort, she finally reached the top of the passage. Seeing the exit ahead, she eagerly walked toward it, only to find it perched on a sheer cliff. Her newly ignited hope was instantly extinguished. In her despair, she noticed a group of people in the distance. She shouted excitedly toward them, but they were too far to hear her. Suddenly, a massive shadow lunged at her. The dragon, drawn by her shouts, charged toward her. Terrified, she retreated into the cave. Just as the dragon was about to breathe fire and burn her alive, a man's voice echoed from a distance. The dragon turned toward the sound to investigate, giving the girl a brief respite. Hearing her father calling her name, she hurried back into the cave, following his voice. On the way, she discovered a mysterious place filled with gold and jewels, and in the center lay the corpses of 3 baby dragons. She recalled a legend she had heard. Centuries ago, a king and his soldiers discovered 3 freshly hatched baby dragons in this very spot. The king ordered their execution, Enraged, the mother dragon incinerated the soldiers with her flames. At the king's desperate plea, the dragon spared his life but cursed his bloodline to offer sacrifices for generations so he could experience the agony of losing loved ones. To avoid sacrificing their own kin, the royal family devised a plan to marry outsiders, using them as substitutes. The girl was horrified to realize the legend was true. Hearing her father's voice again, she continued searching for him. However, her father and his companions underestimated the dragon's power.
Go.
One man was instantly crushed to death, and another was obliterated with a single swipe of the dragon's claw. The dragon roared furiously at her father, who fearlessly drew his enchanted sword and charged. Before he could strike, the dragon wrapped him in its tail and hung him upside down.
Please. I beg of you.
The dragon then released her father, demanding he call out the girl hiding nearby. Watching from behind a pillar, she saw her father refuse, shouting for her not to come out. Enraged, the dragon knocked him down and pierced his chest with a claw. Hearing her father's agonized scream, the girl involuntarily cried out. The dragon turned toward the sound and moved toward the pillar. She pressed against the stone, trying to evade its gaze. Just then, a surviving companion of her father attempted to escape, but accidentally kicked loose a rock, diverting the dragon's attention. While the dragon pursued the fleeing man, the girl rushed to her father's side. With his last breath, he told her to climb back up using the rope she had descended on. Her mother and sister were waiting for her on a ship. Taking advantage of the dragon's distraction, the girl climbed the rope and escaped the cave just as the dragon's flames reached her. Without pausing to think, she mounted her father's warhorse and galloped away. The dragon gave chase, closing in fast. Realizing she couldn't outrun it, she jumped off the horse, letting it continue forward as she hid among a pile of rocks. The dragon leapt over her hiding place, unable to find her, and incinerated the horse in its fury. It then unleashed a relentless barrage of flames onto the ground, turning the entire mountain into a fiery inferno. Seeing the mountain ablaze, the queen realized the girl had caused a catastrophe. In response, she ordered the girl's sister to be captured and offered as a new sacrifice to the dragon. The next day, the girl woke up amidst the rocks, thinking she had finally escaped. However, on her way, she encountered her mother, who informed her that her sister had been captured. Learning her sister was in danger, the girl mounted her horse and raced back to rescue her. When she reached the stone bridge, it was already too late. She heard her sister's cries from the bottom of the cliff. She descended once more using the rope and saw the dragon flying away with her sister. Familiar with the terrain by now, she quickly located the dragon's lair. She found her father's armor and weapons and devised a makeshift timed device. Concealing herself near the dragon, she waited for the device to activate and distract it. When the sound drew the dragon's attention, she crept toward her sister. Just as they were about to leave, the dragon returned. The girl shouted at the dragon, "We've all been deceived! This is all a conspiracy by the royal family. I am not truly one of them." But the dragon refused to believe her, claiming it could smell the royal bloodline on her. The girl was burned again by the dragon's flames. Before she could grab her sword, the dragon pinned her to the ground and stabbed her side with its claw. Desperate, she pulled out the dagger from her chest harness and drove it into the dragon's eye. Roaring in pain, the dragon hurled her away. Seizing the moment, she grabbed her sword and, with fierce determination, lunged at the dragon. Despite her words, the dragon was still unconvinced and grabbed her again. In the nick of time, she pierced its claw with her sword, causing it to toss her aside once more. Spotting a crumbling rock wall nearby, the girl carefully made her way toward it as the dragon pursued her relentlessly. She deliberately provoked the dragon, goading it into using its flames. Enraged, the dragon spewed fire, only to have the flames rebound and injure itself. Wounded and weakened, the dragon collapsed. The girl approached it with her sword, holding out her palm to show the dragon. "This is how the royal family tricked you," she said. "They mixed royal blood with mine." She continued, "For years, you've slaughtered countless innocent girls just like the royals you despise." Instead of killing the dragon, she drove her sword into the ground and retrieved some glowing insects. She used them to treat the dragon's burns, showing compassion despite their enmity. The following day, the prince held another wedding ceremony with a new bride. The girl interrupted the event, confronting the bride and urging her to flee with her family. She gave everyone present a chance to escape, but no one took her warning seriously. Seeing their obstinance, she decided to act decisively. At that moment, the dragon descended from the sky. After the girl left, the dragon unleashed its fiery wrath, incinerating all the royals present. The entire castle was consumed in flames. In the final scene, the girl was seen on her journey home, now accompanied by a new companion.
Please subscribe and click the notification bell for next update.